Now, in this homework helps series, I'm going to take a look at topic 5.7, which are applications and, in a sense, word problems. The strategy, read it carefully. Of course, you're going to pause. Then maybe make a diagram, figure out the equation, and then you're challenged to solve it. Now, I've worked on this, and it does take a little bit of time. And once you get the equation and then go on to solve it, generally these are done by factoring, but you could also use the quadratic formula. So let's see what you come up with an equation. So for something like this, again, as I read it, I wondered, well, what's going on? I had to draw two mountain peaks and then an observation point. And this observation point is at right angles to the mountain peaks. So what I'm going to do now is draw a line here to this one. Let's see, I drew too many lines there. I think you can catch on to what I'm doing though. Again, it took a while for me to do that, figure it out. Okay, so we say the mountain peaks are 30, and then the vista point, one we can call x, and the other one's a little longer, it's x plus 6. So for this equation, we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. So it would be the short leg, x squared, plus the longer leg, x plus 6 squared, will equal the hypotenuse, which is the distance between the two mountains, 30. Now, we're not going to go into solving the equation. We're going to work on just setting it up. But I do have the answers here if you give it a shot to work it and see if you get those answers. Now, here's a second question. Again, you're going to pause it, read it carefully, make a diagram, develop your equation. So after reading it, there's your tree, and you're going to have a height of the tree that we don't know. So we're going to say that is x. Now the wire that's supporting the tree, that would be the hypotenuse, is 1 foot longer than the height of the tree. So this would be x plus 1. Now we have to determine what this is. It says the wire that is anchored to the distance from the base of the tree to this point here is 49 feet shorter than the height of the tree. So this is going to be x minus 49. So now have measures of each of the sides of our right triangle. So the equation is going to be x squared plus this side equals the hypotenuse squared. And there's the equation. When you finish, it's 60 feet. Now notice they're saying the difficulty of this one is low, but there's a lot of algebra in there. Now for our third question, again, you're going to read this and see if you can come up with something. Then I'll go through it. So we'll do this one together. I think you could all agree that x is one of the integers. And again, integers would be like whole numbers, although they could be negative. They're not going to be radicals. So one positive integer, that would be this one, well, the other one, is one less than twice the other. So twice the other, which is x, minus 1. That would be the two integers. And we're saying the squares of these, the sum of the squares of these is 157. And there are your two numbers, and then the sum of their squares is 157. Now again, when I first worked on these, I had to do what you are doing. Pausing, thinking, creating, and then working out. You have to expand this binomial, and then seeing if the numbers are right. And it would be. So if you squared 6, that would be 36. Now, 2 times 6 is 12 minus 1. This is 11. And if you squared 11, that's 121 plus 36 equals 157. So it checks out. Now, as you do question 4, again, you're going to pause. But I would suggest you make a picture of a triangle. And you're going to need a height. This is the height. This is the base. And the formula for area of a triangle is area of a triangle equals 1/2 the base times the height. So to get rid of this fraction, you would just multiply both sides by 2. So in a sense, this 400 becomes 800 equals BH. So there's the formula you would use, and let's see what you can come up. This one is not too bad, and although they say it's high, it had to know this. So in setting up the equation, I think the picture helps. It says the base exceeds the height by 7. So the height then would be x, and then the base is going to be x plus 7. And then the equation would be, you can use it here, 800 equals the base times the height. You can put the height first, that's okay. So again, getting rid of that fraction helped. We had to multiply both sides by 2. Here, the 2's cancel out. And we just take whatever the area was, which was 400, double it, and then this will eventually become x squared plus 7x, just distributing. And I'm going to bring this over to this side, minus 800 equals 0. Now again, these can all be factored because they're nice whole numbers, but you could use the quadratic formula. Now as we look at this one, there is a word background that you're going to read to form an equation, but one of the things is to put it into the equation. So again, pause and see which one you would come up with, although I have this one indicated. So I answered it already. So it says one number, which will be x. The other one is 38 more than that number. So that would be x plus 38. And then the product of these two numbers, you have to put that in a parenthesis, is going to be a negative 361. So that is this item. And then the equation you get out of it is x squared plus 38x as you do the distribution, and then you transpose this, plus 361 equals 0. And that'll be our next slide here. They will want you to solve it. And then these are the answers. Now notice, since your product is going to be negative, one of the numbers is negative, and then when you add 38 to that, you get the other number, which is 19. And when you multiply these, you get a negative 361. So this one, they're saying the difficulty level is low, but it's still a challenge. Now, we did one like this already, and we're saying is if you make a picture, and I'll make some nice lines this time, of a triangle, and then fill in the information you get from reading the problem, that works out very well. So pause it, see what you can come up with. All right, this one's a little different because now the height is 6 feet greater than the base. So the base will be x. You don't know that. But this height is going to be 6 feet more than that. So that's x plus 6. And our area formula, to get rid of the 1/2, we're going to double this into 216 is equal to the base times the height. So this will end up being x squared as I distribute plus 6x. Transpose that to the other side, putting it in standard form, and there's our equation. Now, having done a previous one, again, this was a little easier. It took me a lot less time to do it. In question 7, again, it's going to take you time to read it to figure out what they want. But I think generally, if we make a picture, that would be helpful. And we have a right triangle here and a right triangle there, and they're giving us the dimensions. So take a moment and see if you can figure out the dimensions to put in this diagram. So as we read this, we get here that there is a length of a mat, which we'll call x. The hypotenuse is 6 inches shorter than, or I should say 6 inches longer than the length of the mat, while the height over here is going to be 21 inches shorter. So there are your three sides. Now what they want is the length of the mat. So you're solving for x here. So it would be x squared plus this length, x minus 21 squared, will equal the hypotenuse, x plus 6 squared. Now, when you do all of that and bring everything over and solve for x, you get the length is 45. Now remember, you're going to get two answers. One of them doesn't meet the qualifications and is rejected. Now, for this one, I recall we did one very similar to this in our flipped classroom lesson, and it's an orange grove. So you have rows of trees, just sketching it out here, and the number of rows exceeds the number of trees that are in each row by 2. So let's say the number of trees in each row is x. Now if we multiply that by the number of rows, and it says the number of rows exceeds the number of trees by 2, so that will be x plus 2, and you have the total number of trees, which is 440. So there's our equation. So we haven't done any of these. Let me just do this one. This one says it's high, but it's actually not that hard in difficulty. This is x squared plus 2x. Transpose that, negative 440 equals 0. So it's just a matter of factoring that. And one of them is 20. And you want to get two numbers whose product is this that has a difference of 2. So that's going to be 22. 22 times 20 is that. So one is going to be plus the larger one. So this is the plus. This is the minus. Equate each of your factors to 0. So this is a negative 22. And this is a positive 20. So again, you can't have a negative number for anything. So the number of trees, this is what x is 20. Okay? And the number of rows, if they asked that, would have been 22, adding 2 to this one. Going on to our last example, and we did one like this too. Here we have an area equals length times width, and the area is 132. Then we have perimeter. Perimeter equals 2 lengths plus 2 widths, and we say that is 56. Now we said as we do this, we can simplify by dividing everything by 2. And this gives us 28 equals L plus W. Well, now we solve for one of our letters. Let's say L. L is going to equal 28. Just transpose that W minus W equals L. So now we have an L, which is 28 minus W times our regular W, and that equals 132. So again, we had done one like this in our flipped classroom lesson. So our equation would be then, distributing that, that's 28W, and this will be a negative W squared equals 132. So you want to keep our W positive, so I'm going to move it to this side and get W squared transpose this, negative 28w plus 132 equals 0. So now it's just a matter of factoring this, or you could use the quadratic formula, whichever you're more comfortable with. And eventually the factors are 22 and 6. And since this is positive, these both have to be negative. So here w equals 22, w equals 6. Well, the longer one is the length, and the shorter one is the width, and that was this one completely worked out. Now, I know the teacher makes this look easy, but again, you are looking at what you've been studying, using material, judgment, art, knowledge to develop your answers. So this completes the homework review, hopefully giving you some background. We only solved 2 of them out of the 9 that we did, and you can see that they are definitely challenging, and hopefully this is helpful. All right.